And there's 3 companies presenting, so that should give us plenty of time.
So Commissioner Uribe will be here in about 15, 20 minutes, but we do have a quorum there.
We have a quorum, but you want to start? Sure. All right, well then, I'll go ahead and call the City Commission agenda or workshop to order. This notice has been duly posted and timely posted prior to the meeting. Is there any citizen communication?
Not for the workshop.
Okay, no citizen communication for the workshop, so we will go to item 1, which is the presentation by the highest ranking firms pursuant to RFQ number 2021-15, request for qualifications for broadband network feasibility study and implementation strategy.
And Gabe, before you start, Mayor, just to clarify, this is simply to hire a consultant to study the fiber optics, broadband, our Wi-Fi, all the different components that we have currently, what we are missing, and kind of give us options of where we want to go in the future. So that's what this is for. So this is the ranking for those companies.
Okay.
Mayor, members of the commission, the city issued a request for qualifications. We had 7 companies submit proposals. Staff ranked all 7 of them, and we picked the top 3. Any one of these 3 companies is capable of performing the work that we need done. And their job tonight is to convince you that they're the best, most qualified. Here tonight we have Cobb Finley, and with them is Anita Ram. If you can just wave to the commission. Homer Bazan and Jared Brandstetter. They'll be going first. We then have Foresight Group LLC, and with the company is Lee Comer. And then we have Geeks Without Frontiers, and with them is Kevin Schwartz and Polly Gifford. So what we're going to do is Cobb Finley is going to go first. They've got 10 minutes for a PowerPoint presentation, as do all the others, and then 5 minutes for question and answers. So while they're presenting, we're going to ask the other 2 companies to go downstairs and wait, and when it's their turn, we'll come bring them up. And then they're all welcome to sit in on the city commission meeting where the commission will rank them and actually select one. So with that, we'd like to ask Foresight and Geeks Without Frontiers to wait downstairs, and then we'll come get you when it's your turn for the presentation. Who's going to do this? Is recording this one.
I want to first thank you all to give us this opportunity today to present to you all. My name is Vinita Ram. I've been with Cobb Finley for the last 17 years, and I am the lead for the broadband within our company, and I am going to be the project manager for this project. Can you all hear me well?
Yes.
Thank you. A little bit about Cobb Finley. We started as a company 40 years back. Mr. Cobb Finley started the company doing telecommunication work. Along with me, I have several other co-workers who will be working on this project, and combined together, we have 500 years experience within our firm doing telecom design, planning and design work. Today, my presentation is going to be short, and it is just in 3 different parts. First is our project understanding and our approach. The second part is what was the rationale behind our approach. And the third, I wanted to showcase some of the example projects which have some unique innovative solutions we have brought, which we really think would help City of Harlingen. To get started regarding our approach, the first thing, as soon as we get the NTP, the first step we are going to do is stakeholder engagement. We will understand what the gaps are and what the needs are within the city. Not only because of the accessibility to broadband, but also for the adoption. Why is there a challenge if there are service providers that the adoption is low? We do know that there is 31% of the city where there is no subscription to internet service within the city. So we'll understand what their challenges are. And the next step to that is we are going to bring some solutions based on what we see the challenges are. once we do a detailed design on, for the network, including, we'll go to look at all different technologies, fixed wireless, fiber, everything. And then once we do look at everything and we come up with a good option, we are going to understand how to fund this project. There is several different opportunities right now, and we are going to look at every opportunity possible. And then we are going to come up with a business plan, and the business plan will be set up such a way that it can be immediately implemented. With that in mind, we'll work backwards with our plan. Oh, okay. What was the rationale behind our approach? The two main rationales behind our approach is the stakeholder engagement. When we meet with different departments within the city, all the other stakeholders, the residents, the businesses, understand what their needs are. And the second part of the approach is what City of Harlingen's comprehensive plan is. We have done a detailed analysis so far about what your plan is, and that broadband will be an enabler. The way we are going to plan it would be an enabler to make sure that the city can achieve all their, what they have been planning for the next 20 years. Going back to the collaboration required, we will make sure we work with the ISDs and other stakeholders. We have worked with the service providers in what we found the service providers within this community. We have worked with many of these service providers. In addition to that, we have looked at some of the innovative ways we can do things. For example, with our local knowledge here, we know there is a lot of churches in Harlingen. These we can work with them as one of the stakeholders and utilize some of these, because the church gives us the ability to place fixed wireless units high up in the air. That could be something we could collaborate with them on. That's just an example of thinking out of the box and collaborating with different stakeholders. I wanted to go over some of our experience, and each one of these are a little different what value we bring here. I'll start with the FAR project. The FAR project is close by. It's a great example where we started with a feasibility study. We completed the feasibility study in less than 9 weeks, and that's what we plan to do here. And it was set up such a way that we could immediately go into the implementation. We are in phase 3 of the design. Construction has started on the project, and the project is on schedule right now. This project is going to be very helpful for City of Harlingen because the resources we have put together, the contractors we are working with, the vendors, especially right now with the shortage of suppliers who supply fiber and fixed wireless equipment, all this knowledge what we have here, we can bring that to Harlingen. So this would be a really good project from where we have learned some lessons, and we are going to apply it right here. The unique thing I want to talk about on our City of Victoria project is we have just completed the feasibility study for City of Victoria, and we have found some creative funding solutions. We have worked with the COG to apply for some of the EDA grants out there. In addition to the ARPA money, when we engaged several different stakeholders, we were able to work with an operator and also we were also able to bring in a team which can have investors come in and invest into broadband in City of Victoria. The operator has this joint venture with this investing company who were able to bring investors who want to invest into infrastructure, especially broadband, into City of Victoria. Between what they can do and the grants out there, we have a plan right now to build fiber through the entire city, but specifically ensure that in our first phase, we are able to serve the underserved communities within the city. This next project is a regional collaboration, and it shows our experience beyond working with the city. We were able to we started with Victoria, but we have worked with several cities, different cities and counties together to come up with a regional plan. And I showcase this project because if it ends up that there are surrounding cities or even Cameron County, they are interested in working with you all. We already have relationship with the surrounding cities and the county, and we can talk to them as one of the stakeholders to see if they want to team with you all and work on broadband expansion. This project showcases our experience working with several different ISDs. In this case, we have worked with the service provider Zayo and built fiber through 15 different ISDs in 56 districts. And this last project I want to show, because this is a project where we have partnered with service providers and created a revenue opportunity for the cities. This was in city of Houston and Dallas, where we got Verizon to place, wherever they were planning construction, we asked them to place spare ducts for the city, as well as for 5G installations. We asked them to use city assets and be able to, and have waste for generating revenue for the city. So this example really showcases our experience working with the service providers and how we can bring them to partner with the cities. And that's all I have. I want Homer, who is going to be the principal in charge on the project, and our local team lead to talk and as to what the benefit of COP-friendly team is.
Thank you, Benita. In closing, we'd like to summarize the benefits of the COP-friendly team. First thing is that we have a local team that's invested in the community. We have a McAllen office where I work from, and COP-friendly in general is committed to serving the communities that we live in. Number two, we have a proven working relationship with stakeholders. On the City of FAR fiber project, we worked not only with the city, but with TxDOT. We coordinated with IBWC, with the irrigation districts, the drainage district, and the internet service providers. As far as experience with the full process of planning and implementing broadband and smart city systems, like Benita mentioned, we worked with the city of FAR, we worked with the city of Victoria, Aransas County, and also Region 20 in San Antonio with the Education Service Center. And fourth, the understanding of and experience with the funding options, such as grants and public-private partnerships. We have on our team, we have Nathan Watkins, who has experience with all these, with all these areas. He's a former Mont Bellevue city manager. He's on our team. And he's also experienced with legislative regulations and compliance. And like Benita mentioned also, with the City of Victoria, we were instrumental in finding creative funding solutions for them, such as public-private partnerships. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for shortlisting us, and we're ready now for the question and answer portion.
All right, does anybody have any questions for COP-friendly?
The project in FAR, that was the fiber optic project?
Yes, the project in FAR, and Jared, you want to talk about the project in FAR? We are bringing fiber to all residents and businesses in FAR.
So when you did your study, that focused just on fiber, or that focused on all
No.
aspects?
So it focused on all aspects. We are building the middle mile fiber, but where it doesn't make sense fiber or it's very expensive, we are utilizing fixed wireless units. We are placing Wi-Fi in parks. So it's a combination. It's not just fiber. There are cases where fiber makes sense, but we have to look at scalability in future. In that case, fiber makes sense, but we also have to look at the cost side of it and we do a cost benefit analysis and decide what makes more sense. So we've done both in FAR. So basically what middle mile means is bringing the core fiber into the community, and that it's preferable to be fiber. And the core fiber is basically you go into the main streets, like here it's the I-2 and 69, they cross and go along the loop. If you have fiber along that, from that what you can do is, we call the last mile is where you're taking it to the businesses and the residents. Those can be fixed wireless units to get the cost down. So middle mile is basically if you're looking at, say, the cities, it's easier to relate to drainage and water, right? Is the transmission line versus the last, the core is the transmission line, the middle mile is the laterals, and the last mile is the service.
I want the commission to know that the middle mile doesn't get
Yes.
A little while ago, you mentioned something about working with the city of FAR and maybe sharing something. Are we talking about costs? Is this something that will help us?
So I talked about two things. To share the cost side, it would be good if we work with the lower Rio Grande Valley development, because what they would do is they would be able to bring other cities and counties within your COG who are interested, and the more cities and counties work together, there are more opportunities. The EDA funding, which is for Build Back Better, if you can combine a couple of different broadband projects into it, you can apply for that funding. The FAR project, what I mentioned is, right now with all the challenges with labor challenge and equipment challenge and the getting the material you need, whether it be the fixed wireless or fiber, what we were trying to mention is, right now since we are working on projects and we have local vendors we are working with, it is this experience, we are going to bring it into Harlingen and be able to implement it right here.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? And, yeah, I mean, for me, this is as much trying to provide accessibility to the residents of our community as it is about potential for economic development and having the right kind of infrastructure to attract industry to the region and our community. And you are going to consider both aspects of the broadband question, right?
That's right, Mayor. It's a combination of both. Understand what our residents and business need today, but what you can do tomorrow. In fact, with the one in Victoria, I wrote down this note and I forgot to mention, is on the Victoria project, we have done an impact matrix to see, once this is built, what does this do? How much more business can we attract into the city? And it's a considerable higher percentage when you have good broadband within the city. The other thing we did was, as part of our resources planning, if you're going to implement all this, we wanted to make sure that we are hiring local, we are training and hiring people in the city so that those permanent jobs can stay within the city. So we put a special emphasis on that and to keep this local within the city.
Okay, well, very good. Thank you all very much, and we'll ask for the next group to come in. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, this is Lee Coleman with Foresight. You'll have 10 minutes for a PowerPoint presentation and then 5 minutes for question and answers.
Thank you all for having me come by and visit with you all tonight. A little bit about the company. So we've been around since 2003. We are not just a broadband company, we're a full scope engineering company. So in the middle column, you can see some of the services that we provide. One of the things that we like to think about from this perspective is we're here to support communities. If you think about the civil aspect or the wireless aspect, structures, what does it look like to come in and understand the needs of a community and provide different aspects that support that community as it evolves? Because you're not designing for one situation, you're designing for growth of a community. A few statistics about us, just kind of get an idea of the size of the company we are. About 165 employees. We do about $27.5 million a year. And on top of the consulting aspect of what we do, when you're looking at just fiber networks, we've designed tens of thousands of miles just within the last 6 years. We've done a lot of design engineering projects for fiber cables. And a lot of this is leading beyond just the infrastructure into the services. Because even though I think fiber cable and broadband is really interesting, in and of itself, it's just stuff. It's the services that you can get out of that that makes the most sense. Locations where we're operating, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. Our headquarters is in Georgia, but we're doing work all over the country right now. And we're seeing different areas of the country step up, and they're asking these same questions. Texas is a place we're spending a lot of time and energy today. There's a lot of noise in the market space right now around this. People are asking these questions. So we have offices in Austin, Dallas, and San Antonio. We've done a lot of work here in Texas specifically. Understand what this looks like, understand the permitting aspect. Very comfortable place for us. When we started the broadband team in 2015 at Foresight Group, we created this goal statement. And this is something that sounds very idealistic, but it's important that people understand what this really means. Because it's not about just going out and getting a project, doing a job, even doing it well and getting paid and moving on. Again, I'm a flashback to the whole concept of working with community. Our goal is to connect people to information, which leads to the sharing of ideas, which leads to people connecting with other people. If you think about what social networking means today, we didn't really see all those implications coming out of that, but we see the effect of that now. So how are we going to drive what connectivity looks like in a community? And it's beyond just internet access. It's the way people talk to people, the way things talk to things, and the way people use space. It has all these residual impacts that come to play. But connecting people together is what living to us is really all about. So it's an important way of thinking. How do you have a technology solution that helps your culture, your economy, your education, quality of living? When we started doing this a few years ago, we specifically wanted to focus on community networks. And some of our first clients were state, city-owned power companies, cities that were getting into this space. It was very new 5 or 6 years ago. It's a big buzzword now, but it was new just a few years ago. But you can really see, and COVID really is the thing that exposed this more than most anything else. And now you see where all the funding's going at a federal level. It's $3.1 trillion that are on the table today for community broadband. There is tons of money out there. That tells you where the focus point is. And it all goes down to those connected communities. So we talk about this phrase, connected communities. It's a good buzzword. It sounds interesting. But when we start really thinking about what does that mean, it's not just an internet connection to a home or a business. Why are cities and counties and public entities getting into the space? Because your needs are different than the private telco. You're not just getting people connected to the internet. You're connecting your entire community in lots of new ways. All of these aspects are broadband dependent, whether it's wireless, wireline, anything that you can think of in the future. Think about your home, and the appliances in your home. Your clothing is going to be connected. Your refrigerator, your oven, your dishwasher, your pet, your car. Everything is going to be connected and interactive within that community. When we start looking at how we lay out our programs, and we're usually going out and marketing with clients or partners, we broke it into 4 stages. But really what we've taken is step 1, which is the community assessment, and step 2, which is a broadband master plan, and we've converged those together. So in many ways, it's looking a little bit beyond what we have traditionally seen as a feasibility study, which is trying to understand, what could be a plan. And we've tried to direct that a little more intentional into this is an actual implementable plan. So one of the things that you guys talked about is you mentioned doing a feasibility study, but in the same title it talks about doing an implementable plan, a plan of implementation. This falls in line with the way we approach things. And we like to go in and understand what's the ROI going to look like, who are the investors, who are the consumers, and understand what that business model looks like to make it viable and sustainable. Some of the different clients we've worked with, you may recognize some of these names. There's a lot of others. And the reason I wanted to put these on the slide is to convey to you that every single one of these clients, these partners, these communities is totally different. The outcome and their plan is completely different. Sometimes you're understanding what it is to build a civic ring. Sometimes it's to build a full fiber to the home, fiber to the prem network that's completely city owned. Sometimes it's building just infrastructure. Sometimes it's just managing the relationship with the local telco incumbents. They're all different. There's not a cookie cutter solution to any of this. You have to understand the community through assessment and then devise a plan that works for that community. And something that a lot of communities don't really understand today, because it's, and I wouldn't expect them to, because it's always been the telco model. If you look at those first three things, network owner, operator, service providers, the telcos have always done all three. It was bundled into one package. But today you're seeing those four items being split. So the network owner, that's the asset owner, the infrastructure. The operator, that's who takes care of that network, the splicing, installations, even maybe visit homes and do installations there. So service providers, that's something that's evolving as well. It's no longer just access to internet. I think one day, in open access networks, if you're familiar with that phrase, where lots of internet service providers can compete for consumers, I think that's going to diminish. Because once you hit the internet, it's the same internet. And if you have a network owner that has an SLA, then the service providers all look exactly the same. So once you have internet connection, you kind of tick that box. But think of all the other services that can be on that network that are not just internet to the home or internet to the business. And that list of connected community aspects. Service providers and consumers, that looks totally different. So now the business model looks totally different. Your revenue points, your tenants on the network add to a different business model. And you have to understand what that looks like in contrast to a traditional telco business model. Frankly, I can't really come up with a community that doesn't work. The term feasibility has been a little over-exaggerated. It's always feasible. You just have to figure out what that community needs, and that's the thing that you're solving for. So I try to get that within 10 minutes. I know that was a lot to come at you at one time, so I'd love to entertain any questions that you have.
Came in under 10, so plenty of time. Anybody have any questions for?
So you haven't done any here in the valley though, right? Because I know I saw Huntsville and stuff, but you haven't done anything here in the valley?
In the valley?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
So here in Texas, we work with Lampasas, Texas. We've done some other work through Austin, not directly for the city, but we've designed most of Austin, Texas. Worked with some of the bigger telcos there, some of the new people into the market space. Done some work in Dallas, some work in Houston. Still talking with a few other communities here locally around Texas. Texas is in a strange place. It's home to some of the big telcos. The way it's moving into the community space looks a little bit different. The Council of Governments, they have a very different approach. The EMC co-ops, they're trying to understand what this would look like for them. So Texas is in a different place than a lot of other communities. But specifically, we've done work across the nation from anything from an NFL type city to a small 20-acre development. And each of those, they look different. You have to solve for a different problem, understand what is construction going to look like, who's going to own what part of that network.
Okay,
Thank you.
any other questions?
Just curious, we start on point A, how soon or how fast can you move to point B? You see a certain need and all of a sudden we actually have a boom and we're going in a different direction. How soon can you make adjustments?
So make sure I understand your question. Are you talking about moving through the plan to get into implementation? Is that your
Correct.
question? So
Something
really,
like that.
in order to do this properly, we put out there about 6 months. To do the design aspect is, let's call that about a month's worth of actual design work. Before that, you probably have about a month's work of data collection. And the data collection aspect is critical because if you don't define what you're going to serve, what those tenants are going to be on the network, and what you're going to run into in the right-of-way or on the pole, that's a huge distinction because the deployment of that program will only be defined by the permitting office and the pole owner. You cannot expedite that any faster than those two entities can accept it and approve it. So making sure you have really good data going in, so you've got a couple months of design work there. The rest of that time is really putting together the team. So again, I'm going to go back to and talk about implementable plans. That means at the end of the process, you know who your service provider is going to be. You know who's going to own that network. You already have some relationships with the tenants that are going to fund that network. You know what your business model is going to look like. Most cities don't have the capacity to own that network outright, so partnering with private equity, getting those relationships together, that's really where the bulk of that work comes into play. So to push that process along, it's more about developing those relationships. It's not really hinging on the design aspect of the data collection. That's pretty finite, but it's manageable in the front end of the project. To expound on what you're asking a little bit, though, one of the things you have to do on the front end, this kind of gets into the data collection aspect and defining what you're going to do, understanding the needs of that community. The needs of the community are going to change. You have no idea what this place is going to be like in 10 years or anywhere. It's going to evolve so fast. You know about YouTube. It didn't exist a few years ago. We use it every day. So you need to build something that's viable today, but it's designed for expandability and sustainability. That means building either enough robust network or the ability to augment that in the future at a fraction of the cost. You don't want to go down one path and come back 10 years later and have to go down that path again. So being really smart about the way you do this. Another aspect of that is not just solving for what services you want to have, but one thing you're going to get out of a community network that you're not going to get out of a private telco network. And I think this is where that shift is happening right now. We all are aware of it. As a city, you already know what's going on with water, or with power, or with gas, or with streets, or where you're putting in sidewalks. Those conversations aren't happening with the telcos. But if we're working with you, we can have those conversations. We may not even be creating new permits. It may be, hey, you've got GIS, you're working in shapefiles. Instead of going to all the effort of creating a PDF, sending it to your permit engineer, he reviews it, redlines it, sends it back to me, I make a revision and send it back to him. Why don't we just come together and sit in a room together, look at shapefiles, and understand what that needs to look like? So there's some other ways you can become more efficient on the front end, but it also fixes your long-term problem of sustainability and expandability by being smarter and making better decisions as a community and as a partnership.
Thank you.
Look for, this is a little, I'm asking for a little bit shorter answer than we got earlier.
Sure.
How long for the feasibility study?
I would say 6 months.
Okay. All right, I wasn't sure whether that you meant, that's what you meant for the 6-month period. All right, thank you. Anybody have any other questions? Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to see you tonight.
Dan, Dan, have they given us how much it's going to cost yet or not?
I'm sorry?
Do we know how much they're charging yet, or?
No, we have to negotiate that, consider professional services.
Okay.
So once we rank them, we'll start, just like an architect or engineer, we'll start negotiating with the top ranked and go from there.
Yes, sir, but I thought we weren't doing this. I thought we were gonna invest into,
But sorry, go ahead.
no, but I confused it with, what's the other one, the infrastructure?
Our bad.
No. Oh, excuse me. Not the internet, but the
Fiber.
cables.
So, but broadband, just a term, that includes fiber, includes all aspects of bandwidth for delivery of that communication.
Does this include the,
So what the consultant will do is look at all aspects of what we can do and what we need, including fiber, including Wi-Fi, broadband, the whole thing.
because I think in the workshop, we had mentioned that the fiber, well, we can build on, right? It can be a source of income.
Yeah, if we manage that, and they'll have to look at that, because it's not just putting in the fiber, it's also operating it and maintaining it. But that's what they're gonna look at. These are consultants that'll look at the feasibility of the whole thing. This is the partnership that we have with the school district, where they're gonna pay for half the study, and we're paying half.
But do we have a cap? Do we have a budget in that study
Yeah.
amount?
Yes.
Which is how much?
Well, we can discuss that later, Commissioner, because they're in the room.
They're in the
also.
room.
Well, they weren't in the room right now. That's why I was asking the question.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do.
Okay, but I asked the question because they weren't in the room.
No, I understand.
Okay,
I'm fine,
yeah,
sir.
we're gonna, let's take the next presenter.
and we've actually discussed that already, Commissioner, and we asked how much it is gonna be for the school district, what half and half would be. Well, all that has been discussed already. But I'll answer that once they leave the room.
And then I think, Commissioner, the construction costs will be added next year when we have the second round of the ARP funding, the ARPA funding. So this is Geeks Without Frontiers. This is Kevin Schwartz and Polly Griffin. You have 10 minutes for a PowerPoint presentation, and then 5 minutes for question and answers.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Boswell and City Commissioners. Thank you for having us here. It's really an honor to be here and have a chance to
Could
talk
you
with
turn the microphone up towards
Help
you?
with the
You're a tall, thank you.
Better now?
There you
There we go.
Good.
I'll start by saying you've had a chance to see our application, and so I do not want to spend time today rehashing those things that are in there, but simply to highlight the qualifications that we have and hopefully connect them to the project that you have at hand. I also want to make an effort to connect you to the why of why we do our work, which I think is a real differentiator for Geeks Without Frontiers. So for starters, as a reminder, Geeks Without Frontiers is a nonprofit organization. That doesn't mean we do things for free, but that means that we are very much focused on the mission of our work, and the profit is not the center of our efforts. This is a great position to be in because one of our preferences is to remain tech neutral at all times. We are not tied to any particular vendor, any particular process, or any particular methodology, simply what works best for the customer. We span the entire spectrum of work that needs to be done on a project like this in a partnership fashion. We work from the research side to the policy side to the feasibility side, the business modeling, implementation, sustainability, outcomes, and adoption, which we think are all key components in making sure you have a successful broadband deployment. And of course, this takes us into fields where, depending on the geography of an area, fiber, wireless, satellite, other technologies come into play as needed. Among the many people that we have on our team and the partnerships we bring to it, would highlight the two that we have with you today. I'm Kevin Schwartz. I come to this work from 25 years in K-12 technology experience, most recently with 5 years as the CIO for Austin Independent School District. We were doing this work 15 and 20 years before the pandemic. We brought one-to-one access to kids in advance of the pandemic and during the pandemic in a way in which we protected our community and protected our staff. We achieved one-to-one internet access and one-to-one computers for every student before the start of school in the fall of 2020. With me today is also Polly Gifford, and I know of no one more qualified, more experienced, and more connected than her in installations. I've had the pleasure of working on several projects with several school districts. Please keep in mind the school districts we're talking about. Austin ISD is 175 square miles, so these are cities in and of themselves, if you will, and have all the complications of those institutions, as well as the scale being on the size of very large corporations. So it's not a small enterprise in any way. And working with Polly, I've never seen a situation where she was not able to add value and alternative methods to pre-design situations based on her experience in the industry and her knowledge of existing infrastructure. And Polly, I'd love if you'd have a chance to talk for a few minutes about these things.
What's the next slide, Kevin? Thank you for letting us be here together. Oh, here we are. When I looked at what y'all were doing and when we look at communities doing today, and over the last 25, I saw 30 years come up there, and I thought, we built that first fiber network in 1996 and connected schools with the goal of long-term making the community better, not just build it for the schools and set it. How could we make enterprise better? How could we connect the oil and gas in Houston? And fortunately, over the last 25 years, we've been able to do that with projects. So we saw how infrastructure enabled different enterprises. School districts were an anchor tenant, right, and large anchor tenants. So we were very fortunate to be able to work with schools to get fiber deep into communities, right? So it gave us the opportunity, way before fiber was popular, to be talking about broadband for all. So I was fortunate enough to meet with Kevin early when he was doing one-to-one to talk about how do we make sure kids are connected. In 2010, I was active in one of 4 projects throughout the nation that connected 2011 E-rate money to connect kids through Houston. And so that brought me all the way to 2016 when I started working in the rural areas around communities like Harlingen or around Victoria, and working with providers of fiber who I've worked with since they started installing fiber, and how we use those fiber networks to bring broadband. Working with rural electric co-ops to partner to bring that in rural areas and then bring them back to our communities before the pandemic. So when the pandemic came and we saw this all come to fruition about the importance of broadband, we could actually start modeling solutions. So I'm sure everyone that you've talked to talked about the importance of mapping. And we can say the importance of mapping until you see good mapping that's impactful to design, right? So how the solution comes to that. So I think our history has gotten us here, and we're fortunate to be, and appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this.
From our application, we had the opportunity to list 3 references, and so I would speak to those just a little bit now. It's not the entire body of work that we have, but we picked these 3 to show the different varieties of engagements that we have, especially when we don't have all the information as a consultant or even as a customer, and we have to go find those things. So an emergency response in Harris County was a good example of something that had to happen fast and had to happen at scale and had to be right. So this is that type of work. We're heavily involved in working with tribal reservations as they work through their sovereign issues, and they're dealing with significant grant funding and building out their own internet service provider systems, and doing those for reasons that are different in their community that I'm sure are different, in all cases in other communities. Each community has a set of goals and aspirations that make it unique. There's overlap with other communities, but it's defined by the community itself. And so the work in tribal reservation has been very rewarding, but also not separate from an urban center or even another country in those cases. And then something as broad as the work we're doing with the Oceans Project and protecting the fish. And I say that almost tongue-in-cheek because it sounds like it's protecting the fish. It's really about human trafficking and the work in those areas. So as the last slide I want to speak to is identifying the goals which you laid out, and we're prepared to meet those goals. It's absolutely in line with our Community Connect program, which puts the community stakeholders first and works towards the human outcomes. And the last graphic here is a wonderful thing that's happened in Harlingen Consolidated ISD, where they have this Park and Learn program. That's great in a pandemic response. The leadership is fantastic. We'd like to take the word park out of that, right? We'd like for the access to be ubiquitous for learning, for economic outcomes, for civic engagement, health, and everything else.
We lost the quorum there.
Lost it.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you to just pause for a minute.
Somebody need to check on Commissioner Odibe.
He's on the phone in there.
He's in there? Okay.
My apologies.
All right, I'm sorry, we have a quorum.
No problem.
Please proceed.
Sure.
Thank you.
I guess just to restate my last comments is this is really about the human outcomes that are associated with. Broadband is a wonderful thing so that we can get to these benefits for the humans, for the economic benefits, for the education benefits, the health benefits, the civic participation benefits, et cetera. And so I have other slides in here which are primarily for backup. If you'd like more information on those, I may refer to those during questions, but that would be the end of the presentation.
I would like to comment, we are fortunate. I think that there are projects that have been implemented, the networks designed, architected with goal, long-term goals, not just the goal of connecting schools or the goal of connecting the city facilities or the county facilities, but the bigger goal. And architecting the network that does that, and then seeing that come to life, seeing it bringing broadband to kids that have never been connected, bringing it to whole communities, structure was designed properly. So I proudly am going to tell y'all that we built and designed and worked on a network in 2014 that has been used last month to bring broadband to students with emergency connectivity because they were in underserved areas and the network architecture for that, and then the funding was available to make that come. So when you've been through the whole phase and able to see the success of that, I know that's what you're part of it is see where you are today, where you're going to be in 3 years and 5 years, how you're going to get.
Anything else y'all want to add?
No, thank you for now.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? All right, well, thank you so much for submitting your proposal and being here today to talk to us. We appreciate your being here, so thanks, and we'll take this item up. I may move it up to the closer to the beginning of the agenda so that if you don't want to wait.
So our meeting starts at 5:30, so that's when they'll take the item.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. All right, so that concludes the workshop. Unless, I don't know, unless y'all have any questions, there'll be an item, we have an item on the agenda,
Is
but
there anybody from the school district here then?
No, right? I don't think so, Commissioner. No.
Are they not part of this?
They were in the ranking committee, sir?
No, but they couldn't be here, none of them? Not one person? They didn't send one representative?
We didn't ask them to attend, Commissioner. We did ask them to rank the proposals, and so they did rank all 7 of them, and so they helped us pick the top 3. Once we start the negotiation process and the implementation, they'll be a part of that group. So they will be
I think
involved.
it'd be important for them to be here.
Yes, sir. Well,
And they've approved the interlocal with a cost as well.
Yeah, I know that, but I think they should be here. What I'm saying is, I think they should be here. I think it'd be important enough for them, if they want to partner up with us or something, that they show up and show some kind of interest.
well, that's my fault. I didn't invite them to be here, Commissioner, so I'll take responsibility for that.
okay, very good. That'll conclude our workshop. So we got 10 minutes till the next meeting.